Im. Our Torah portion begins with this little but terrifying word, im. It's just as little and just as terrifying in English too. Im means if. Everything hinges on these two little letters, Aleph Mem, I-F. Everything, prosperity and poverty, peace and war, contentment and misery, life and death itself, everything dangles on this little word, if. Im bechukotai telechu, ve'et mitzvotai tishmaru, va'asitem otam. If you walk in my ways, the ways of mitzvot, if you protect them, if you fulfill the mitzvot, then I will grant you rains in season, so that the earth shall yield its produce and the trees of the fruit of their field. You shall eat your fill of bread and dwell securely in your land. I will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down untroubled by anyone. If I will make you productive and fertile, I will keep my promise, God says. V'hakimoti et briti etchem, I will keep my covenant with you. I will be ever present among you. V'hayiti lachem lelohim, v'atem tihiyu li la'am. God says, the promise we yearn to hear. God says, I will be your God, and you shall be my people. This one daunting word, if, is followed by and overwhelmed by all the promises that we long to hear. God says, like a parent to a child, I will take care of you. I will protect you. I am right here with you, and I will never leave you. But is it true? Do the conditional statements of Parashat Chukotai hold up? That is the question of the day. Our rabbinic sages looked around in their own time, and they saw faithful men tortured, and they saw the wicked literally getting away with murder. And so the rabbis asked, how can this be? One theological solution is found in the rabbinic consideration of Olam Haba. Out of the rabbinic tradition came the view that while good people may suffer and the wicked may flourish in this world, all will be made right in the world to come. God of justice will balance out the scales, and in the next world, reward and punishment will be meted out in perfect measure. But also, as you know, the Jewish view, by and large, does not dwell on Olam Haba, on the world to come, because God only knows of that time. Rather, we focus on this world, which we can access. We concentrate on this lifetime, which we can experience in the here and now. So where is our fulfillment to be found in this lifetime? How do we receive these many blessings that God offers in these conditional clauses of our Torah reading? Could it be that the straight reading is just what it says it is? Perhaps no need to dream about the world to come. Don't overthink it, because the good life is this life. According to the annual World Happiness Report, it could be so. The Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the Earth Institute at Columbia University ranks 158 countries by happiness levels, using factors such as per capita gross domestic product, healthy years of life expectancy. It also adds into the mix of data points, quote, having someone to count on in times of trouble, and also freedom from corruption in government and business. The top 10 countries this year are reported to be, according to this happiness index, Denmark, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Finland, Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Australia, and Sweden. Remarkably, number 11 for the third year in a row is the state of Israel. Yes. How is it that Israel's happiness index is so high when terror attacks and war are constant, when the nuclear threat from Iran is well known, and when poverty is real and growing? Now, when we break down the many components of this study, truth be told, Israel falls much further down the list by a number of important measures. It ranks only 24th in the GDP per capita. Israel has only the 17th highest per capita income in the world and comes in at number 30 out of 36 countries on security and personal safety. But in a number of other categories also added to the mix of this study, Israel outshines the rest by far. Let me name a few. When respondents, both Jewish and Arab Israeli citizens, were asked to grade their levels grade their lives on a scale of 0 to 10, and answered questions in categories including matters of social support and freedom to make their own life choices, as Rabbi Satz spoke of, and also the ability to be generous in all kinds of ways. This is when Israelis outrun the rest of the pack. Now, don't get me wrong, Israelis love to complain. It's the great national pastime to debate and to kvetch and to explain strong opinions over strong coffee. But that's just it. Israelis love to complain. They are happy when they complain. For at least two reasons, I think. One, they complain because they can. It makes them happy to complain because they can. Most Jewish Israelis are immigrants or the children of immigrants, and they come from countries, more than 90 countries, many of which are places where they could not complain. So being able to complain about government is an expression of personal and precious freedoms. Another reason I think Israelis love to complain, and the reason why it adds to that happiness index, is because complaining can be, not always, but certainly can be, a catalyst for change, the fuel that leads to self-determination and advancement. The individual Israeli sees opportunities through personal growth, through their service to the collective. And there is great dignity in that, knowing that you have a role to play in advancing your country's future. It was not always so for our people, of course. Our Torah portion recalls a time when it was not so. God says, I, Adonai, your God, am the one who brought you out of the land of the Egyptians so that you would be their slaves no more. I am the one who broke the bars of your yoke and made it so that you could walk tall. God brought us from slavery to freedom, from being bent over by the heavy burdens in order to be liberated, to walk with dignity, to walk with a straight back and square shoulders and with heads held high, the way Israelis do today. It is not so everywhere. You might be curious, where are those other leading countries of the world on the happiness index? The United States ranks at 13. The United Kingdom at 23, France at 32, and to my surprise, Italy came in this year at 50. Professor Jeffrey Sachs is the head of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network responsible for this happiness study, and he also serves as special advisor to UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Commenting on this study, Professor Sachs says the following: there is a very strong message for my country, the United States, which is very rich and has gotten a lot richer over the last 50 years, but has gotten no happier. And listen carefully, because I believe Canada is at the same risk. The message, Sachs says, is clear for a society that just chases money. We are chasing the wrong things. Our social fabric is deteriorating. Social trust is deteriorating. Faith in government is deteriorating. All countries, even the most happy, are at risk of these things. It seems to me that happiness might not be the best word for this study at all. Happiness is a light-hearted word. Certainly when we look at Israelis, number 11 for 3 years in a row, I don't think of them as simply happy. They don't have those simple smiles. Israelis are intense. It seems that the study must be after something deeper, something more like fulfillment. Just the experience of serving in the army alone is enough for a person to feel needed, necessary, important, connected, rooted, bound to one another in strong bonds of interdependence. As many of you know, we recently returned from a congregational trip to Israel, and we witnessed this inspiring sense of fulfillment over and over again as we met Israelis from all walks of life. It was a social justice trip designed not to see the sights, but to learn about the issues of the day, the hard issues of the day, and to meet some of the champions of justice who are working day in and day out on the ground to make the state of Israel live up to its biblical descriptions of a land where justice rolls on like a river and righteousness flows like a never-ending stream. We met farmers who are training agricultural students from third and fourth world countries to teach them how to draw out the finest from their own lands and to feed their own people. We met rabbis who turned themselves into physical fences by protecting Palestinians from Jewish terrorists when it is time to go out and harvest the olive groves, which have been in their families for decades. We met a Bedouin woman who, through entrepreneurship of her traditional woven textiles, is bringing education to Bedouin women throughout the Negev. We met an artist who led a walking tour of the graffiti found in the upscale Tel Aviv neighborhood of Neve Tzedek, and he showed us how graffiti artists are the modern-day prophets, each with a message of passionate protest. We celebrated Rosh Chodesh with the women of the wall by bringing Holy Blossom's own little Torah to be smuggled into the women's side of the Kotel. And our own cantorial soloist, Lindy Rivers, chanted from that Torah and led Hallel in a full voice, B'kol Ram, for all to hear without fear or shame. And we met a number of our own homegrown Holy Blossomites who have chosen to make Aliyah. We met Rachel Peled, daughter of Happy Iskov. Rachel grew up here and is now a human rights lawyer bringing forward cases of African asylum seekers. And we met the daughter of Michael Cole. Jen grew up here and now works with women at risk in Beersheba. And we met Jessica Hart, daughter of Jill Kamen and Murray Hart. Jessica is now studying to become a social worker and works with children who suffer post-traumatic stress disorder from terror attacks. And we went to the Supreme Court with our own Rebecca Baskin, daughter of President Joan Garson and past President David Baskin. Rebecca is now studying international law, and it was really thrilling to see her look all around the halls of the Supreme Court, wondering what will be one day for her Israel. They are part of the startup nation. They innovate and agitate in order to fulfill the dream of Israel. And what about us, we who are in the far reaches of the diaspora? Not all of us choose to make Aliyah, but we also are in search of a life of meaning and purpose. Reform Judaism was founded on the belief that we do not need to make Aliyah, but there is a rich and enriching Jewish life possible right here in the diaspora. And we find it not only when we tap into the inspirational stories of our Israeli brothers and sisters, although it's always good to go, and to feel uplifted by their examples. And it's not only through volunteerism and tzedakah, which of course we do with our eye on Zion, but we also discover a life that is meaningful and purposeful right here in the city where we live. How do we do it? What do we have in common with our Israeli brothers and sisters who rank high on the happiness scale? Another study quoted in the Wall Street Journal says that 80% of Israelis mention Jewish culture as being significant in how they carry out their days. And more than 2/3 of Jewish Israelis say that Jewish tradition is important to them and Jewish values are what steer the choices they make. Well, that Jewish tradition and those Jewish values and that Jewish culture, those are ours as well. In the words of the late Muhammad Ali, service to others is the rent you pay for the room you live in here on earth. If we walk in the ways of God's mitzvot, if we provide for the orphan and the widow, how many here gathered this week at the event in support of Jewish Family and Child Services? If we pursue justice and equality for all, how many of us here rejoiced this week when we saw the rainbow flag raised on Parliament Hill? If we study Torah like Julia and Lindsay, our Banot Mitzvah, if we are fruitful and faithful enough to bring a baby like Charlotte into this world, if we keep Shabbat holy as a day set apart, as we do when we light candles, when we gather together in sanctuaries for prayerful song, and yes, when we participate in renewing our synagogues, both in space and in spirit, then we will know God's blessings. We will know more than happiness. Our Torah portion does not promise happiness, it promises fulfillment. The covenant between God and the Jewish people does not promise simplicity, does not promise protection from life's sorrows, but it does promise that in the midst of a complex and often heartbreaking world, there is for us a life of meaning and sacred purpose if we make it so. Let us make it so together. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Amen.